reached Blowback and Levin Productions. For Marc Levin, press 1. For Daphne Pickerson, press 2. Please hold while I try that extension.
Hello.
Hi, is this Mr. Levin?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Chris George. I'm a student at NYU, and I'm in a documentary class. And for one of my projects, I have to interview a filmmaker and a documentary filmmaker. And I was wondering if you had a couple of minutes.
Right now?
Well, whenever.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
What do you want to know?
Well, first, let me say thank you for your time and everything. But I guess how did you get started in documentaries? Was there a moment when a light went off in your head? Your father?
Can you hold on 1 second?
Of course.
I'm ready to be, it was what was happening in the, the great cultural bubbling and revolution of the late 60s of music, film, movies like Battle of Algiers, documentaries. I was a kid, I guess really what was formative. I got a job as a teenager on Gimme Shelter.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that kind of had a profound impact, obviously, in my life. It was a documentary. It dealt with culture. It dealt with violence. It dealt with race, music. So many of the themes that I guess have been a part of my work were right there in the beginning. And there was something about the immediacy of, that the real events of when I was young were so fast and furious in the late 60s and early 70s that it was hard for fiction even to keep up. And there was, in the literary world, this whole thing called the new journalism and the non-fiction novel. Truman Capote in Cold Blood, Norman Mailer, Executioner's Song, Tom Wolfe, Electric Kool-Aid Acid. So those, I think, had an influence on me also, that kind of cultural political reportage that was written as if it was almost a novel or fiction, but it was real. And that was the beginning of, reality is moving so fast that, you don't even need to make it up.
Yeah.
You just need to find a way to be able to tell these stories creatively, artistically, like these writers are doing, and like filmmakers are becoming grittier. And of course, that was when Scorsese and The French Connection and Mean Streets and The Godfather, were coming out. So I think all of those things, and Watergate happened, and the assassination, that was my coming of age. It just put me on a course that somehow, if you could be where the action was, there was, nothing that kind of came close to the adrenaline and the excitement, and also feeling that you could make a difference, maybe.
Well, hello?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I lost you for a second. Well, let me ask you another question then. You said that back then it was hard for fiction to keep up, and how do you see that today with technology and everything,
I think it's even twice as hard. Now, look at reality television. The technology now, it's not just writers. Now you can be a filmmaker, and, obviously people thought reality TV was kind of a joke and maybe a fad, but I think we all realize now it's an entire hemisphere of media, and there'll be all sorts of kinds of it, the game show kind, the romance kind, this kind, that kind. We're trying with Brick City to kind of, do a kind of hybrid that's part reality, part documentary, part almost, non-fiction novel. But yeah, I think now it's more like the modern art world was at the beginning of the 20th century, where everything is game to be put in the canvas.
Yeah.
Mix, match, smash up, do it yourself. There are no restraints. It's also, of course, blown up the economic model, so that's a problem, but it's also opportunity. I mean, it's harder for you guys coming out of school right now to get a job than ever before, whatever business you're in or industry. at the same time, and like the music industry, the film industry, and the indie world are all struggling with the changes that technology has wrought, economic changes. But I think there are also opportunities there. This is the beginning of something new.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let me ask you another question, because I want to ask you about some of the people in your films. Like, you seem drawn to like interesting characters, like any good filmmaker would be. But I saw Mr. Untouchable in theaters on 125th Street when it came out, and there was a part in the movie where all the people, well, a few of the people in the audience started laughing like they knew him when they were talking about the guy Claw, when his hand was blown up from all the dope in his arm. Like, did people tell you like what his real story was? Because it seemed like he was like a neighborhood legend or something.
Nobody, Scrap, who was, I think, the storyteller of that, I think did tell us more about that character as a kind of legendary neighborhood junkie, who they would test all the heroin with. But I can't remember talking to anyone else about him. But I think you're right that, especially in the theater you saw it up in Harlem, a lot of people recognized that character in that story.
Mm-hmm. And is that going to be one of the characters in the Showtime show that you're doing?
Well, that's a good question. That project right now, we finally got it free from Showtime. And we are trying to figure out what, it's a great script, and it's a fictionalization. So, you got to be liberated from just the real biography to make a TV series work. Otherwise, it's going to just be like a kind of, bio series.
Yeah.
But whether that character is not really a major player in the pilot, no.
No, because honestly, like I grew up in Queens and like it wasn't like dope land like it was up in Harlem, but there were kids in my neighborhood that the drug dealers used to try out the drugs on, and they were like some of the most interesting people I ever met.
Where'd you grow up in Queens?
In Bayside.
Oh, okay.
Bay Terrace.
But you saw the coke crack epidemic for your generation.
Well, I guess I grew up. I was born in '85, so I guess I'm a little bit after that.
Yeah, it was in the '88 to '92 that Queens just blew up.
Yeah. Well, back in '94, the doorman in my building got caught with 487 kilos of cocaine at JFK. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's like I guess I was drawn to documentaries at a young age. But actually, my favorite documentary of all time is actually one of yours. But I always wondered why it was never available. I saw it on HBO on demand a few years ago, but it's Mob Stories. How come that documentary is like not available anywhere?
That is a very good question.
Because I think it was a great film. I watched it with my friends. We loved it.
Well, you should send HBO a note. I'd appreciate that.
I will.
Just let them know, because we're actually, kind of in a discussion with them now on some of our films that aren't on their DVD library, and we're asking the same question. I don't know that was one. I didn't even realize it wasn't available.
Yeah.
Because usually it's a music issue, that you don't have licensing for over 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is. But as I recall, that was all original music. I don't think we licensed any music in that film, so I'm not sure why that wouldn't be available. That should be available.
Yeah.
And you should request it, especially with Boardwalk Empire coming out, in the next 2 years or whatever, as HBO's, kind of history of organized crime with Scorsese.
I guess on the same subject, do you think John Gotti Jr. should be retried in court?
No, I'd have to say no.
I agree.
Was it 4 or 5? How many mistrials? If the government can't convict you, after 4 trials, I would have to say,
in a recession of all things, right?
Yeah. It's a waste of resources. I don't know what the real story is with Junior, but if he survived 4 trials, I think it's time to move on.
Have you kept in touch with any of the people that were in Mob Stories? I know Jackie DiNorscio passed away.
Dogs for a while. He wrote a cookbook.
Yeah.
And then he actually appeared on some talk shows. I think he went on either Letterman or Leno, or the guy was out of his mind. He was. Oh, and then the one that I actually stayed in touch with was the last guy.
The guy that was in Carlito's Way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brother Frank.
Yes.
Minucci.
Yes.
You could find it. You could get in touch with him.
He has a website, I think, right?
Yeah, he's got a website. He's got like a motorcycle ministry.
Yeah.
He'd be a good documentary, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, I actually have another documentary. Two of the guys are like neighborhood legends where I grew up. One of my friends that I grew up with, we were like.
Well, Brother Frank,
Right.
I think I spoke to him probably about 2 or 3 years ago, but I stayed in touch with him, exchanged holiday cards, and he is still a very colorful character. Whatever his ministry is, his motorcycle ministry, I'm sure it's wild. And plus his
dragging people down the block.
Full stories of his life with the Gambino family. That make quite a story.
He was a Hell's Angel too, if I believe.
I think something like that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you another question. When you interviewed Jackie DiNorscio in jail, or just any of your interviews where you interviewed people in jail, did you feel like any resistance with them in federal prisons? How did you get in there?
It's much harder today. That's the problem. It's the post 9/11 problem.
Yeah.
Now, maybe with Eric Holder, Obama's Attorney General, they may loosen it up, but since 9/11, it's been, in the Bush administration, it was like almost impossible. Their fears of terrorism, this, that, and the other, but it made it almost impossible to talk to anyone. Before then, it was a lot easier in the Clinton years. So I'm just beginning to explore that myself, just on some projects.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure, you have to ask me in about 6-7 months, if they start loosening up and changing some of, just their policies.
Okay. What do you think about the terrorists that are going to be tried now in New York, alleged terrorists?
I think that's going to be, you got a great story there. I certainly feel the American justice system can handle it. Come on, we've already tried terrorists, we've already tried mass killers, in the Supermax we got a bunch of them, homegrown terrorists. No, I think, whether it should happen, downtown or on Governor's Island, that we'll see. But I'm all for it.
Okay. I guess just to wrap things up, how do you want to be remembered? Your films, because you're one of the most prolific documentary filmmakers. There's something when people say 50 years from now, Marc Levin, who was that guy? How do you want to be remembered?
That's a good question. I don't. I guess I hope that people could look back and say, somehow this guy, had his finger on the pulse. The real thing, the authentic thing. The saying, keep it real.
Yeah.
That somehow he found himself in a place and was able to capture these stories that do stand the test of time. I think it's interesting. You look back on culture, and it's hard to know what really 50 years from now, emerges, what's forgotten. Because if you look at popular fiction and music 100 years ago, you see that there were songs and there were books and plays that we'd never heard of today, and then there were things also that we now think of as classics that were barely recognized. So it's tough. I hope my films though do stand the test of time, that people feel they really get a sense of what was going on when we were all here.
Okay. And one more question: how do I contact HBO to tell them to put that documentary out there?
I would say two things. They've got a website.
Yeah.
HBO. I'd go to their website and go to our website, like Facebook, Blowback Productions Facebook.
Okay.
On Facebook, and we will. If you just say you've seen our films and that's one. Where can we get it? Someone from our shop will also forward it to the executives that deal with the DVDs at HBO. But I would just try. They've got a general response, comment number on their website.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Levin. I appreciate it.
Good luck. What's your name again?
My name's Chris George.
All right. I'll be looking for your work.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.